So I thought today I'd go through when I use a flash at a wedding and how I use a flash at a wedding. I'll be totally honest, I only use a flash on the dance floor, not because I don't know how to, but because I just want natural light pictures. They're a lot more suited to how I work. They're not as obtrusive, and it means that I can be in and out and get a picture, and people aren't aware that I've just come over, shone a big flash at them, and then disappeared into the sunset basically. So what I'll talk about today is the two main settings that I use for Dancefloor flash photography. So these settings today are for when the flash is mounted on top of the camera. I'm not going to go into off-camera flash because that's a separate beast and that needs its own video. So this is literally just for when you've got a flash, whether it's a really expensive flash or whether it's a simple cheap flash off eBay. Doesn't matter, they all do the same job. It doesn't matter what you get. I guess it's more down to preference and what you can afford. I started out with really cheap flashes and I upgraded, and to be honest, I wish I hadn't. I do exactly the same job as the flashes that I had before, just with an extra £300 price tag and the word Canon on the front of it. So yeah, get whatever you're comfortable with and get whatever you can afford. So my first tip is I literally put my flash on my camera. That's not the tip, by the way, that's not it. And I point it directly at whoever I'm photographing, which sounds really simple. And you're thinking, what the hell am I watching this for? But wait, there's more. Be your favourite meme. That's the way I live my life. So what I do is, the power is full when you first turn it on, and I just dial it down to 1/64th of its power. You can, if that's a little bit too dark for how you're working, just bring it up to 1/32nd of its power. And then what you need to do is you need to go to zoom and zoom into about 70 or 80 zoom. This is in manual mode, by the way. It's probably in ETTL when you turn it on. I don't know what that stands for. I'll make something funny up later. Every time what? So this way, by doing that, by zooming it in, you're basically creating a natural vignette using the flash. What your flash is doing is it's firing like this because you've got it zoomed in. So whoever you're photographing on the dance floor, it's only going to light what you're pointing your camera at or who you're pointing your camera at. That's all it's going to light, and all around the edges is going to be nice and dark. So zoom your flash in, turn the power down so you don't blind them, and it's got this lovely, it's just basically a circular light. It's not a circle, is it? It's this shape. But yeah, you'll get a really nice effect with that. It's really good for just highlighting the person. With these settings, what I'll do is I'll put a wide lens on. I wouldn't use a 50mm for this. I'll put a 24 on, or I'll go down to 16, and I'll get right in the dance floor. I'll just be photographing around me basically. I'll move a little bit and then I'll be photographing people dancing. It also means you can just, if you use back button focusing or not, I don't think it'll make a difference, but you can just hold it down low. You can be holding it up high, and it's just, the flash is hitting whatever you're pointing your camera at. So you're not messing about with, you're not pointing it to one side by photographing this way. You're literally pointing and shooting like this. You'll see me most of the dance floor like this. So it's really good for just pointing it. There's no card in my camera, otherwise I'd show you that amazing picture. But you're just pointing it at whatever you're photographing, and that's what it's lighting, and it's lighting them well, and it's capturing that movement totally still. Obviously you can't go past a shutter speed of 200 when you've got a flash mounted on, otherwise you'll get lines. It'll capture your curtain closing and opening. It'll capture what's inside going, hello. And it'll stop, it'll flash like that. So don't go past 200. I normally keep it about 160 shutter speed, and my f-stop it'll be about 5 or 6.3, and my ISO will be at about 1000, 1600, and I'll just spend the night like that when I'm not doing the other settings, obviously. And I'll just spend the night photographing like that, capturing people in the dance floor, doing shots, eating pork buns, hog roasts, fish and chips, whatever it is we're missing out on, I'll be photographing that. Because of these settings, and because you've toned down the power, and because you've got it zoomed in, you can't use a zoom with these settings. It won't work very well. It won't look as good as it can, basically. So you can't really stand off in a corner like a creep watching everybody dance. You have to be in amongst it. If you use a zoom with these, your power's not going to be enough to reach whatever you're trying to get. Does that make sense? If you're stood far back, that flash isn't going to be powerful enough. And if you do turn the power back up and you're using it with these zoom settings, then what you're doing is, as you're back, even though it's zoomed, as it gets further away, it's still spreading out. So you're not getting that nice circle of light on them. And if you do use a zoom and turn the power back up and turn the zoom down on your flash, then you've gone against everything that I've taught you so far, and you might as well just be watching a different video. So the next settings that I use, I don't usually use a lot at a wedding. I'll only use it here and there. I'm not a massive fan of it, but I do like that it adds movement to pictures. So I'll put it in there, I'll sprinkle it throughout, and that is shutter drag. And what you're doing with shutter drag is you're opening your camera up to take the picture. It's capturing the natural light, but you're moving your camera about. So the natural light's doing this in your image. It's pretty much painting with the light. And then as your shutter closes, it's firing the flash. And whatever you're pointing your camera at that point, it's capturing that still because the flash is hitting that. So I'll give you the settings for that now. I'll come round and show you. It's easier. So it's like we're in the movie Ghost. I've got my arm around you. Can you see that? Let me focus. Right, so what you'd do is you'd go to menu, then you'd go to external speed light control, and you come down to flash function settings. This is for Canon, by the way. And then if you just go to this is your shutter, and then it'll probably on first curtain, so that would be when you first take a picture, it'd fire. What you want to do is you want to put it on a second curtain synchronization and leave it on that, and I'll give you an example of that now. With second curtain synchronization, what you are doing is you are taking the picture and then the flash won't go off until the picture's finished. So you take the picture and then you move your camera about, and then as the picture's finishing, it'll fire the flash. So that was all one picture. That was at 5 seconds, that one. So if you brought that down to 2 seconds, you would focus on whoever you want to photograph on the dance floor. You would take the picture, move it, and then it fires. So when you first start doing this, there's an easy ratio to remember, and that is just the 6s. So what you'd do is you'd set it to 6 seconds for your shutter speed, 6.3 for your f-stop, and your ISO at 600, and that'll give you a roundabout so that you get a good, nicely exposed picture with your flash. I usually turn the flash power down again, even for these. Have I took a picture? Yeah, I took a picture. So what you're doing with that, I'm going to put that down because I was just messing about now. So by turning the power down on the flash, what you're doing is you're not overexposing, because there's going to be a lot of natural light coming in and lighting up a person as they're dancing or doing shots. So what you don't want to do is get really nice shutter drag and lights of the twinkly lights and then fire too much flash. If that's too bright, it's going to blow them out. It's going to ruin all the drag that you had because it's going to be too bright. It's going to be an overexposed picture. So the best thing to do with that is just turn the power down and then just dial it up until you get a nice exposure. And then you'll come to know how far away you should be stood from a person when you're doing that shutter drag. I know I said that 6 seconds is a good setting for setting up, but I normally keep it at about 2 or 1 second because I don't like too much shutter drag in my pictures. I don't like it when it's right across people's faces and you can't make things out properly. I just like that little bit of movement. I just like adding a little bit of movement to the pictures rather than it being right across an image and it just looks like a blurry mess, basically. I like just, if there's twinkly light, I keep pointing up here because I'm thinking of twinkly lights, but if there's twinkly lights, I just like that little bit of movement, not loads. That was probably too much what I just did there, probably just that. If you're just going that, and then that's all. I'll move the camera and then I'm just doing it quick, and you can be doing that up here and over here. If you keep your f-stop quite high, your focus is going to be quite deep, so you don't need to worry too much about having a 1.2. You'd probably really struggle if you had it at 1.2. Keep your f-stop quite high. That focus reach, it'll be a little bit beyond, so that if they are dancing, if they do spin, if they move back from where your focus point is, it's still going to be in focus, especially with the flash hitting them as well. Again, with shutter drag, I like to use the 24mm or the 35mm, and I like to get right in there close again. But if you want to come back with that and you want to do a whole dance floor scene, it'll work really well with a whole dance floor scene in a wide picture, because if there is a band playing, if there's lights from the, I don't know, if there's lights, you can drag those across as well, and you can drag them right across a full dance floor. I guess one more point that I want to touch on is I would normally have a flash on a camera on a harness this side, and I'd have another camera here with no flash on it. Probably this 50mm 1.2. I'd have no flash on that, and I'd have it down to 1.2, 1.4, and I'd pick some up for the flash, and I'd quickly dial in settings for shutter drag, or I'd dial in the settings for the point and flash. I don't know if that's what it's called. I've just trademarked that, the point and flash. So that could be taken another way as well, couldn't it? And what I'd do is I'd just pick that up. I would pick people off with natural light. They won't know that I'm taking pictures of them because there's no flash. I could be stood at the back with a bigger zoom on, and I just pick people off using the natural light. You'll get them nice colours coming in then as well, from the DJ lights, the band lights, the venue lights. It won't just be all flash photography. It'll be like nice reds, blues, greens. So just don't neglect your lenses that go down enough to photograph on the dance floor. You don't always have to use flash, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. You can still use some natural light, even if it's window light, if it's a summer's day, or if it's not quite dark and people are dancing. Use the window light and use flash if you want to make it look like nighttime.